and mysterious remains buried alongside him expose the dark secrets of his royal family tree.
He had a child with his own sister.
Together, they suggest Tutankhamun and his family were destined to die out. Tutankhamun was the last pharaoh of his royal family line. He died at age 19, leaving no heirs. And within decades, Tutankhamun's dynasty collapsed and disappeared from history. Ancient Egyptian records ceased to even mention the boy king. Tutankhamun, his father, and his successor were erased from official history. But experts have questioned how the most famous king of ancient Egypt and his whole family could have disappeared without a trace. Now, the most comprehensive forensic examinations of Tutankhamun's treasures are helping unravel the mystery. And it's the most personal items, many never seen before, that have shed remarkable new light on Tutankhamun's short, troubled life. Custom-made shoes, unlike any others from ancient Egypt. A hoard of walking sticks, hidden for decades in the basement of the Cairo Museum. And the most unexpected and unsettling discovery in the pharaoh's tomb. 2 tiny human mummies that were buried with him. The evidence produced by these finds reveal a life racked with pain and tragic personal loss, a complex and disturbing family tree, and political battles that sentenced the young pharaoh to 3,000 years of oblivion. Gathered from museums across Egypt, all of Tutankhamun's items are now on their way to be reunited at the new Grand Egyptian Museum for the first time since Howard Carter opened the young pharaoh's tomb in 1922. More than 5,000 objects were discovered, but only a few have been on display. Until now. Egyptologist Chris Naunton is one of the first people to witness some of the objects that have been hidden in the vaults of the Old Cairo Museum for nearly a century.
A lot of these things are going to be seen for the first time here in the Grand Egyptian Museum, but before they can go on display here, they are all being looked at, assessed for their state of conservation, and where work is required, that work is happening here.
For scientists, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to analyze all the objects up close before the new museum opens to the public. Among the thousands of artifacts, there was one discovery that disturbed Carter more than any other. He recorded it in his journals, now kept at the Griffith Institute in Oxford, England.
This section of the published report deals with perhaps the most poignant objects that Carter came across in the tomb. Inside the treasury, he found the evidence that Tutankhamun had not been buried alone.
Piled among gilded shrines and treasure chests, in a plain and undecorated box, lay 2 miniature sarcophagi. Inside these coffins were 2 tiny mummified skeletons.
It's quite clear that this had quite an effect on Carter himself, and that's evident from what he wrote about them. He says, "These pathetic remains give much food for thought. With little doubt, they were the offspring of Tutankhamun, although there is nothing to tell us emphatically."
To Carter, they were a mystery neither he nor technology could answer at the time. Now Egyptologists are using forensic science and DNA analysis to reveal the true story of the child mummies. Among them is Manar El-Kial, a conservator at the new Grand Egyptian Museum. It's the first time she's seen the tiny coffins the mummies were buried in.
Among many other things have been discovered in this tomb, these are particularly interesting because they look very beautiful and well preserved. It's also the first time for me to see coffins for baby mummies.
But the skeletons of the babies found in these coffins weren't fully developed. They were two premature, stillborn girls. But who were they? And why were they buried in Tutankhamun's tomb? It took 21st century DNA technology to provide an answer to this 3,000-year-old mystery. Thousands of miles away from Egypt's sand and dust, in the mountains of Bolzano, Italy, at the Urach Institute for Mummy Studies, biological anthropologist Albert Zink spent a decade perfecting scientific tools to study ancient remains. His research included the first ever DNA study of 11 mummies of Tutankhamun's royal dynasty, found in the Valley of the King's Tombs. And it was the two stillborn babies that were the most intriguing.
It was a big mystery, and nobody really knew whether these two children were his own or whether they were put in as a kind of offering for his afterlife.
Dr. Zink set out to recreate Tutankhamun's genetic map and determine his relationship to these mummies. But it was a task with some serious challenges.
It's a quite complicated and complex process because the DNA, the genetic information in a human body, it degrades after somebody dies. And it degrades quite quickly. It depends for sure on the temperature, on the humidity, on the environment.
Zink finally managed to extract enough precious DNA from these stillborn fetuses to compare it with the DNA of Tutankhamun. The results suggested these babies could have been the future of Tutankhamun's dynasty.
The few markers we had, they showed some similarity to the markers in King Tutankhamun. So it's still likely that they are related to him, that these two fetuses are his own children.
Zink's results suggest that Tutankhamun, the most powerful man in Egypt, could have been a grieving father. But now for the conservators of the Grand Egyptian Museum, another tragedy is unfolding. The babies could soon be lost forever.